So here we go. So solving multi-step equations. So we did one step, we've done two step, now we're doing multi-step. Anything more than two is called a multi-step equation. You might have two, you might have three, you might have 4 or 5 steps to solve a problem, depending on how complicated it is. What we're doing today is we're adding an extra step. Some of these are the only time that you will not be doing the same thing to both sides. Your first step will be to actually simplify the equation before you solve the equation. So for example, the first ones we have are solving equation after combining like terms. So we need to combine like terms first, and then we do our solving, and when we do our solving is when we do the same thing to both sides. So combining up like terms, we've done some of that. And on that second worksheet you had on Friday, you did some, or on Thursday, you did some of that in the end of that worksheet. So we look at this, we have 5x and 2x. We want to combine our x's together. I've got 5 apples, I've got 2 apples, which means I have 7 apples. So I have 7x. None of the rest of that changes. 7x minus 23 equals 5. And now we solve. So our first step, simplify. Second step, we start solving, and this is a 2-step equation. The first thing we do is get rid of the addition or subtraction. This one has minus 23, so we add 23 to both sides. And that gives us 7x equals 28. And now we divide both sides by 7, and I get x equals 4. So stuff in the green we've done before. That's what we were doing on Tuesday. A lot of math, a lot of what we're doing now is going to be taking what we've done before and adding on to it. Adding a step or two beforehand. And then, everything else we've already done. So we have one new step. Everything else is the same as we've done before. Second problem. Our first step, combine up like terms. So I have 3y and minus 6y. Be careful of negatives and positives. Careful of negatives and positives. That's when people were combining up like terms and weren't paying attention to the minus signs in front. So I have 3y and minus 6y. What's 3 minus 6? Negative 3. So I have negative 3y, and then everything else doesn't change. Minus 5 equals negative 8. So I have one new step. We have actually done that. And we did combining up like terms. Now we're combining like terms and solving. And now I solve. First thing I do is get rid of my addition or subtraction. So I get rid of the minus 5. So I add 5. That gives me negative 3y equals negative 3. Now I want to get rid of the negative 3. It's negative 3 times y. So I divide both sides by negative 3. These cancel. These also cancel to become 1, so I get y equals 1. Questions? Okay. Do that one. Don't worry about the other problem. Do this first one. And yes, your answer will be a fraction, but you won't get one till the end. So let's do this. So let's do this one. Okay, because a lot of you are getting stuck on the final step. But I actually like having it not work out even on purpose because it doesn't always come out even. So my first step, combine up like terms. 4z plus 2z gives me 6z plus 5 equals 9. So I combine up my like terms first. 2z, 4z gives me 6z. And now I solve the equation. Subtract 5. and I get 6z equals 4. And then I divide both sides by 6 because that's what I do, and it doesn't matter if it doesn't go in evenly. Not everything's going to work out perfect. My 6's cancel. I get z by itself. That's what I need more than anything else. I need to get the z by itself. It doesn't matter what's on the other side. Whatever's there on the other side is fine. It doesn't have to come out even. That's not always going to come out even. So I get 4 over z equals 4 over 6. Now what do I need to do? What you will always do with fractions? Reduce. Can I reduce? Yeah, divide top and bottom by 2. And I get z equals 2 thirds. Yeah, I got a fraction for an answer, but did I have to do my fraction before I got to the end? No, I didn't get anything. I didn't have to add a fraction. I didn't have to divide a fraction. Didn't have to do anything with fractions till I got my final answer. The only thing I had to do with the fraction is reduce it. Okay, so it's actually really easy. It looks complicated, but it really is very easy. And fractions are okay, especially if you don't have to add or subtract them. Sometimes you don't have to. Okay. Questions? We're not going to do that second one. Next page, because we don't have a lot of time.
Cross it off, please, on your paper so we don't.
The one we didn't do. Okay, so solving an equation using the distributive property. So once again, same idea. We need to simplify the equation before we solve the equation. Okay, we need to simplify before we solve. So I need to get rid of my parentheses. I need to simplify. I need to distribute. Okay. When you distribute, you pass it out. When we hand out notes at the beginning of class, do we throw it in a big pile and say, go for it? No. We distribute. We pass them out. We put a little bit at the front of every row. That's distributing. So what I have to do is I have this is -8 times everything inside the parentheses. So I have -8 times 2x and -8 times -1. So it's times both of them. So I have -8 times 2x gives me -16x. -8 times -1 gives me +8, because a negative times a negative gives me a positive. And remember, you can use your calculators if you start getting stuck on this stuff. Don't let the arithmetic mess you up. And that equals 36. And now we solve. So this is the only new thing we did. And now we solve the problem. Subtract 8 from both sides. And I get -16x equals 36 minus 8 is 28. Divide both sides by -16. And I get x equals 28 over -16. Okay, not a big deal. Simplify. I didn't have to add or subtract fractions. I just got one for my final step. Now you simplify. Both of them are divisible by 4. Divide them both by 4. X equals -7 over 4. Not a problem to get a fraction for your final answer. Not a big deal at all. Okay. Second verse, same as first. My first step, distribute. Just because the variables are on the other side doesn't change my process. So my first thing I do is I distribute the 2. 2 times k, 2 times negative 3. So I have 8 equals 2k minus 6.
Remember, you can trade sides at this point if you don't like it. You want the variable on the left, just trade it.
Now I solve the equation. First step, get rid of the subtraction, get rid of the minus 6. So I add 6 to both sides. And I get 14 equals 2k. And then divide both sides by 2. 7 equals k. And once again, if you wanted to, you could have at this point rewrite it. 2k minus 6 equals 8. And then you would do the same thing. Add 6 to both sides, divide both sides by 2, and guess what? You would still get the same answer. If you wanted to. Questions? Okay, due to time constraints, cross out those 2 on the bottom. Well, I had to set up for last year was on a block day. Not just a block day, but it was a block day. And today's not just because it's Tuesday, but it's also shorter classes anyway. So, well, I guess you don't mind not doing extra work, right? Good. All of the answers online. If you want to check, or you can always check later. Okay, this is where things get a little tricky. When you have variables on both sides. When you have variables on both sides, you want to get the variables to one side or the other first. Now, personally, I always like to get rid of which variable is smaller. That is what I personally like to do. Find the smaller of the 2 variables, get rid of that one. If I do that, I'll have positive variables, and I won't be dividing by a negative, no matter what, even if they're both negative to start with. If I get rid of the smaller one, I will have positive variables. Makes it easier. Less chance for an error. So what's smaller, 5R or 7R? 5R. So I want to get rid of the 5R. So what I do is I subtract it. And if I subtract from one side, I need to subtract from the other side. So my 5R's cancel. I have negative 3 equals 7 minus 5. How many R's do I have? 2 R's. And then the plus 9 doesn't change. Move the variables that are on one side by adding or subtracting the variables from one side to the other. I always like to get rid of the smaller one because now I have positive 2. If I'd gotten rid of the 7, I'd have negative 2 on the other side. I'd rather have positives. Okay. And now I've worked the problem. Subtract 9 from both sides. Negative 3 plus negative 9 is negative 12 equals 2R. Now what do I do? By 2. Divide by 2. And I get negative 6 is equal to R. So my final answer is negative, but I didn't have to divide by a negative. I divided by a positive 2. Boy, this next one's fun. I got a lot going on here. I got an awful lot going on here. So I have to decide what I need to do first, and I need to do some simplifying first. Whenever I see parentheses on one side, I want to get rid of those parentheses on the one side. Now, I can't combine or anything, but what I can do is I can distribute. Okay, so I distribute. Just like we did on the previous set of problems. Get rid of the parentheses by distributing what's in front. 2 times negative 3x, 2 times negative 2, negative 6x minus 4 equals negative 4x plus 4. So your first step, get rid of the parentheses, distribute. Now I have the same problem I just got done doing, same type of problem. I want to get the variables all on one side. What's smaller, negative 6 or negative 4? Negative 6 is smaller than negative 4. Okay, negative 6 is smaller than negative 4. So to get rid of negative 6, what's the opposite of subtracting 6? Adding 6. So what I would do is I would add 6x to both sides, and I can only add to the x's because I can only combine like terms. So I add the x's together. So I have negative 6x, positive 6x. My x's cancel here. And I have negative 4 equals negative 4 plus positive 6. Negative 2 or positive 2. It should be positive 2. (2x plus 4). And now we're solving. Simple two-step equation. First step, subtract 4 from both sides. Negative 4 plus negative 4 gives me negative 8. When they're negative, just add it. When they're both negative, just add them together. Equals, my 2x just comes down, and my plus and minus 4s cancel each other. Divide both sides by 2. And I get negative 4 equals x. Multi-step problem, more than 2. How many steps did we have on this one? We had 1, 2, 3, 4 steps to solve this problem. Okay. This is part of the reason why I really stress showing your work early on, because when you start doing lots and lots of steps, if you're not writing it down, if you're not showing your work, you're going to make big mistakes. Okay. Cross out the 2 that we're not going to do because we don't have enough time to do those and the other stuff. And now we get to the fun one. He says, jokingly, okay, how many of you want to solve a problem with fractions in it? Oh, you're lying.
I'm interested. I couldn't figure this one out.
Okay, I'm going to tell you what I do. This is what I tell all my classes. This is what I tell at every level. This is what I do. First step when solving, when I've got a fraction in there, get rid of the fraction. Stop talking, please. First step, get rid of your fractions. I don't want to deal with the 3 halves. I don't want to add or subtract because I don't have to add or subtract fractions. I don't want to add or subtract fractions. So your first step is to remove the fractions. Multiply everything, and I mean everything, by the denominator. What's my denominator? 2. So I multiply everything times 2. Times 2, times 2, times 2, times 2, times 2. Everything gets multiplied times 2. Everything gets multiplied times 2. And here's what happens. When I take 2, and I'll make that 2 over 1 for the first one, times 3/2, my 2's cancel and I get 3x. No more fraction. And then everything else still gets multiplied by 2. So I have -4 times 2 is -8. X times 2 is 2x. -6 times 2 is -12. And then x times 2 is 2x. No more fractions. First step, get rid of the fractions by multiplying everything by the denominator. After that, just work the problem. But you won't have any more fractions until possibly the final answer. You might get a fraction for your final answer, probably because you started with fractions, but you never know. But you won't get one until the end if you do. Fractions are gone. And this is what I do at every level, no matter how complicated it is. If you're solving, get rid of the fraction first, and then solve the problem because it's much easier after here. Now, we've got a lot going on this problem. We have variables on both sides. We also have on one side 2 variables on one side that we need to combine together before we can move the variables to one side. We need to combine the variables on one side first. You have to simplify one side as much as possible. So I have 3x minus 8 equals, combine up my x's. I have 2x, and 2x gives me how many x's? 4 x's. 4x minus 12. So what you want to do is if you have variables on both sides, you still need to look, do I have to simplify one side first? Okay. And now from here I solve. Variables on both sides, get rid of the variables on one side. Which one's smaller, 3 or 4? 3. So I subtract 3x from both sides. My 3x's cancel. I get minus 8. What's 4 minus 3? 1. So how many x's do I have?
1x.
Ooh, makes it easy. Minus 12. And this is now a one-step problem. What do I do now? Add 12 to both sides. -8 plus 12 is 4. Once again, you can use your calculator to do this. 4 equals x. And look, I didn't even get a fraction for an answer.
That's crazy.
Okay, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Not a big deal. Okay, life's going to be full of numbers that aren't pretty. You got to learn to get over it and deal with it. Questions?